The NFL draft is a crapshoot, and I think enough people do not pay enough attention to that and do not give it the respect it deserves. And the margin of error between a bad draft and a good draft can sometimes be very, very close. All that being said, Andrew Berry has certainly taken his licks from a lot of people about his draft history with the Cleveland Browns. But the early returns on the 2025 draft class are not only his best, but have the possibility to be one of the best draft classes in recent history of the NFL overall. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. Appreciate all of you come out to the OBR every single day, whether it's for the best written content there is at the OBR.com, where you're there absorbing all the great content from our writers. I highly suggest you look into the VIP access, the Insider Forum, the Ask the Insiders. Your subscription gets bought up with a subscription for Paramount Plus. Great get there. And of course, everybody that comes out every evening to the OBR streaming network, beginning at 6 o'clock. Today being Thursday, we're getting later in the week, closing more and dialing into the Browns-Vikings matchup Sunday at 9:30 Eastern in London. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube and, of course, the OBR over on Twitch. Now, as everyone knows, I am definitely a pro Andrew Berry and pro Kevin Stefanski regime. I feel that they have taken this franchise to heights that certainly have not been seen since the return in 1999. I'm also not naive and smart enough to realize that, where they have taken them is certainly not the ultimate goal. There's been moves I've agreed with, moves I've disagreed with. Some have worked into what I thought was my favor. Some have worked against certainly what would have been, the way I would have done things. But this 2025 draft class and a couple of the moves made along with it really have the Cleveland Browns in a position of change. And that could be a strong change to the positive, perhaps maybe as immediately as Sunday, or something where we continue to see steps of growth in 2025, then add in some more youth in 2026, and all of a sudden this franchise certainly is going to be the strongest it's been in multiple decades. 1 quarter in, 4 weeks in, and it feels weird to say 1 quarter in and what now is an 18-week season, but we can't say, a quarter in at, halftime Sunday when the Browns face the Vikings. But 4 weeks in, you start to get, the player of the month type of talk, which not necessarily is an award, but people trying to, parlay that into, early pieces on, offensive player of the year, MVP, defensive rookie of the year. And from ESPN and talking about, some of the top defensive rookies of this year. And this piece certainly has given that belief, has been given the belief and would be giving that honor for the best defensive rookie in the NFL for the month of September to the Cleveland Browns' very own Carson Schwesinger. It has been an amazing start for Carson Schwesinger to this point. Certainly the pick that nobody necessarily saw coming. The Browns kind of remained positive about JOK and kind of hiding everything at the same time that they weren't really too sure, wink, wink, just about what the health was for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I think that's why the Carson Schwesinger kind of just, I don't want to say blindsided, but surprised. Certainly everyone when it was made. In a team that was so void of offensive talent, Browns went double picks on defense at number 5 and at number 33 to begin the 2025 NFL draft. And the thing with Schwesinger and the rapid ascend certainly had a lot to do with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah being, in the agreement with the training staff that, not playing in 2025 hopefully is going to be his best option to a full and healthy recovery. So that figured that, Schwesinger was going to have a large role. Then, as training camp opens, there's no Jordan Hicks for the first 2 practices, which didn't seem so, you know, off the beaten path at the time. Hicks, a 10-year veteran, maybe has some family things to attend to. And then on day 3 of training camp, we get the official that no, Jordan Hicks just isn't coming at all. Jordan Hicks has chosen retirement. Certainly not necessarily a huge surprise. We're talking about a 10-year veteran. But now here was a team who, has always had good linebacker play in the Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry regime here with Cleveland. Linebacker coach Jason Tarver does a fantastic job. Each and every year, Jason Tarver finds a way to get more out of the linebacker room than the Cleveland Browns have essentially monetarily invested into it. The room is certainly a little bit more expensive nowadays with what Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah makes, and certainly the contract, which is fully guaranteed to rookie linebacker Carson Schwesinger. Once we got that news that Jordan Hicks was going to retire, it basically put Carson Schwesinger, and I know I was a little nervous about it at the time, put Carson Schwesinger on a path where it was, not necessarily, hey, let's see what the rookie got. More of a path of, hey, Rook, you're being counted. Right away wearing the green dot, making the calls on the defensive side of the ball, spending, ample time with defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, being the quarterback of his defense. And 4 games in, and we saw it in, whatever tape was released from training camp or joint practices. We saw it from the small amount that Carson Schwesinger played in the preseason. Whether it was run defense, whether it was pass defense, whether it was blitzing, Carson Schwesinger is just a guy that really, really has it all. And wasn't necessarily, a guy that seemed destined from greatness right away. I mean, UCLA, he didn't do anything but play special teams his first 2 years. And I remember as he was tearing up college football last fall, it certainly seemed odd that he was even still at UCLA. There's not a lot of kids in college football nowadays who sit for 2 years, basically play nothing but specials, and stick at a school. Certainly one that was vastly underachieving, the way UCLA was. They move a couple players around on defense, create a spot for Carson Schwesinger to be a starter, and he goes out and leads college football in solo tackles and in tackles in 2024. Just a tremendous collegiate debut. Forgoes his time in college to go to the NFL. Probably a move that may not have been super smart at the time, just because he had the 1 year of experience. But you look at where Schwesinger is now. and a young man who probably basically gambled on himself and correctly gambled on himself. I don't think the Cleveland Browns could have asked for more than what Carson Schwesinger is currently giving to this team. He's a team leader, makes the calls on defense. He is all over the field. And this was like basically everything I was saying in any video you saw of anything that was considered live football in the summer. Every time there was a pile, 49 was involved. If you needed to find the football, all you had to do was look for Carson Schwesinger. It was obvious. He was a magnet for the football. We see it each and every week on the film during the games. He is, I think, one of only 5 linebackers currently being graded by PFF with a grade of over 75 in run defense and in pass defense. His sack of Jordan Love in week 3, the Browns' sole victory to this point, was just absolutely a thing of beauty. I still don't know what Jordan Love was thinking, but there was a opportunity where Schwesinger could have maybe taken a kill shot, drawn a stupid penalty. He did none of those things. Just got Jordan Love to the ground, which technically could have been his second sack that day. He's kind of really just become a huge, huge part and kind of the heart and soul of this Cleveland Browns defense, and certainly become a fan favorite so quickly. And when we talk about this Browns defense, and for so many years since 2017, all you really mentioned was Myles Garrett. Certainly some Denzel Ward, but there was no mention necessarily of anybody else on this Cleveland Browns defense. Most of it was warranted. Most of it was fair. But you look at this group on defense now, and certainly Myles Garrett's still just the absolute best football player in the league. If you want me to say defense, fine, I'll say defense. But in my opinion, he is the best overall football player in the NFL currently. And now all of a sudden, it used to be such a huge gap between Myles Garrett and again, Denzel Ward, but the rest of the Cleveland Browns defense. But now, not only is that gap closing, but it's also got staying power. Schlesinger and Graham here for years to come. Of course, Denzel is still a really solid corner. Isaiah McGuire, again, is a player that just does not get the love he necessarily deserves, I should say. But Quinshon Judkins has just been an absolute just revelation of a guy that, again, when the Browns took him, he had tested well. The film from UCLA was great. But again, this is it. This is all I got. There was no way to evaluate what he did as a freshman to his sophomore year, from his sophomore year to his junior year. There was none of that. This is all we had. And I know I've said, and I was on record right away, that, Carson Schwesinger could be a good player in the NFL. Or what I thought was there's a real strong potential chance that there's still yet another jump in the play of Carson Schwesinger, which will make him not just a good linebacker in the NFL, but a great linebacker in the NFL. And to his credit, Carson Schwesinger is doing that and doing it well. Certainly playing under this defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, and certainly the tutelage of linebacker coach Jason Tarver. Carson Schwesinger is reaching the apex rather quickly. And the Cleveland Browns are certainly reaping the benefits on the defensive side of the ball from Carson Schwesinger to this point. But this is just not a Mason Graham and a Carson Schwesinger draft. Quinshon Judkins only been here for a hot minute and already establishing himself very well as the Cleveland Browns' number 1 running back. Over 100 total yards his last 2 games, touchdown in each game. with a team with a lot of issues as far as their running game and, blocking, being able to give young Judkins the daylight that a guy like Nick Chubb used to get. And that's kind of what bothers me with the comparisons. Number one, they're way too early to compare Quinshon Judkins to a guy who was just sensational for this franchise like Nick Chubb. And the other thing is I think they're a little unfair. And I think some people forget just how good the offensive line was when Nick Chubb was in his prime for the Cleveland Browns. But it's not just Quinshon Judkins. Browns have 3 rookie running backs on their roster. Every one of them scored a touchdown. Dylan Sampson. And Sampson is going to need to get a little bit more accomplished with the blocking, because otherwise when he goes on the field, it is a tell for the defense. It is a tell that they're either going to, his blocking. And I think Roquan Smith was the one who probably, exploited it a tad bit. But there'll be a huge role, certainly, for Dylan Sampson going further. I still would like to see more of Rocket Sanders, and I understand because of Sampson's inefficiency at blocking and Jerome Ford being a pretty good blocker. And at this point, Jerome Ford being the most accomplished receiving back the Cleveland Browns have. I still want to see some Rocket Sanders. I think the 3 of them together between himself and Judkins and Sampson really give you a diverse group that becomes a solid group at the running back position. Fannin, it started off really hot, and then it kind of slowed down as Joe Flacco's play slowed down. I'm really intrigued to see if, the Browns can get Sampson back going. And I think it's going to happen with Dillon Gabriel under center. Because again, what I am telling you about Dillon Gabriel is I think Dillon Gabriel is not going to the line of scrimmage with any intention, any specific intention. He's going to snap the ball. He's going to go through his read progression. And the first guy who's open is going to be the guy who gets the ball. I think a lot of the pass route scheme the Cleveland Browns call Harold Fannin very high in the pecking order as far as progressions. So certainly we can see Fannin getting back on what was that hot start this Sunday in London against the Vikings. Isaiah Bond was kind of just the gift that kind of came out of nowhere. Everybody knows about, how his draft process went. Certainly didn't achieve the levels of success in college I think a lot of people felt he was destined to do. But you sit here right now and you see the way this looks, and, Isaiah Bond is a starting wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns, essentially after only being here for 6 weeks. And role certainly should pick up. Targets should pick up. It's going to be a question of just whether or not Bond can take advantage of it. You throw in Aiden Huntington as well. Why not? Because he's just been an absolute fun piece. Whether it's rushing the passer from the interior. And, I'm not sure for how much longer that role will continue, because I think a lot of us figured Mike Hall to be back by now. But Hall ruled out yesterday to not even take the flight to go with the team to London. There's been an MRI. And, the Browns can continue to tell us that, Mike Hall is on the path and, on the path they felt he was going to believe. But it does seem hard, that it would be through 5 weeks, 5 games. All, been inactive all 5. It seems hard to believe that everything is going the path the Browns were assuming it was going to go. If the Browns, without him having been put on IR. Because a team that just, under an analytic lens, you think the Browns, if they figured he was going to miss the first 4 to 5 weeks, there's no reason in the world they wouldn't have put him on IR. Get the extra roster spot. I understand it hasn't hurt the team. When all is ready to go is when there's going to be questions, certainly about the defensive tackle room. Because right now you just got too many of them. Those things do have a tendency to weed themselves out, though, of course. But with all this youth and all these young guys contributing, now begins the chance for this class to take yet another step up. The Browns told us and didn't mince words what they felt Dillon Gabriel was and just exactly what he could bring to them and why they likened him to a perfect fit or a really good fit for a Coach Kevin Stefanski-led offense. Smart people tend to look for what they find in others that reminds them of themselves. Browns like smart. Dillon Gabriel, smart. Intelligent young man. Extremely, extremely experienced. You will not find anybody at UCF or at Oklahoma or in Oregon with a negative word to say on Dillon Gabriel. We all know what the drawbacks were. And there's nothing Dillon Gabriel could do about what were the negatives as far as his game coming to the NFL. He's too old to grow anymore. He's too old for his arm to get any stronger. But as the oldest guy of the 2025 Cleveland Browns rookies, it's now his chance to sit at the head of the table of this group. And I said yesterday, it's hard to believe when the Cleveland Browns are 1-3 that everybody can say, hey, there's a legit opportunity in front of this franchise right now. But there is. Ravens are 1-3, and their roster right now is a hospital ward. The Cincinnati Bengals, without Joe Burrow, are an expansion team, and that is with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I don't know what to think of the Pittsburgh Steelers until I see him against the Cleveland Browns. Because I have huge, huge questions about their offensive line. And even bigger questions of what a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers is going to look like when this defensive line is just coming at him for bore. It's kind of funny that Carson Wentz is the starter for the Vikings this Sunday. Because I'm going to be completely honest with you. If I were the Minnesota Vikings, and with quarterbacks, it's always different, right? If a quarterback is even close to going, the team's going to play the quarterback. But if J.J. McCarthy was even 50% maybe to go in this game, if I was the Minnesota Vikings, I'd be like, hell no. Not a chance. Vikings think J.J. McCarthy is going to be their quarterback for a decade or more. If he is not 100%, there is no way you would put him on the field against this Cleveland Browns defensive line. Browns should have a huge advantage. There's injuries everywhere for this Minnesota team right now, and a lot of them on the offensive line. And Carson Wentz, hey, it's great after all you've been through to still get an opportunity to play some games in the NFL, but brother, this Sunday may not be the day for you. So much of this 2025 Cleveland Browns is certainly about, the kids and what this 2025 rookie class for the Cleveland Browns become. one of the biggest things that can become the biggest storyline of this 2025 Cleveland Browns rookie class is if Dillon Gabriel can give this team a spark starting Sunday. And look, I don't know. I'm not expecting him to go out there and just be a world beater. I'm not. But I think he will play smart. I think he will play with a lot of guts and guile. I think we're going to get to see our first signs of some mobility from a quarterback for the Cleveland Browns here in 2025. I don't think he's going to be a big risk taker, but I think he's going to be intelligent enough and be able to read defenses and coverages fast enough that could be the difference maker. Dillon Gabriel does not want to go down with the ball. Dillon Gabriel wants to play point guard. He wants to get the snap and distribute, whether it's handing it to the running back or, again, going through his read progression. And the first guy he sees with an ounce of separation is where the ball is going to. So we'll all have our eyes on this, obviously, Sunday beginning at 9:30 a.m. And with it basically being, I guess we'd call it a matinee, right? If the reason I'm calling it a matinee is because it's running solo, unopposed. So, kind of the oxymoron of the primetime game. Instead of 8:30 at night, it's thrown on at 9:30 in the morning. So not only will we all be glued in to Dillon Gabriel's Cleveland Brown debut, a lot of the NFL world will be as well. I'm confident. I'm highly confident in what I think Dillon Gabriel can do on Sunday. And it's not going to be a numbers thing, and I don't think that's a way we're going to measure the successes or the failures of Dillon Gabriel. I think it's going to be an overall team play, overall offensive play, turnovers, whether he can keep the house in line and this team does not return back to their ways of, all these offensive pre-snap penalties that just shot him in the foot and the ass the last few years. He's got to be very, very intelligent with that, keeping everybody in line. I don't think people are going to watch Dillon Gabriel and just have this ooh and ah of just, overall just incredible talent. And that's not the way it needs to be. That's not the way it should be. What you're going to see from Dillon Gabriel is just hopefully smart, sound, professional quarterback play. With an influence on a whole bunch of guys from this rookie class in line with him, and maybe the kids all grow together. Judkins, Sampson, Sanders, Fannin, Isaiah Bond, and of course the group on the defensive side of the ball as well. Still in Gabriel's world. We're all going to get a first-hand seat, first row seat Sunday, and just see what kind of opportunities he can make with it. We appreciate everybody for all their support for the OBR, whether it is the written content over at theobr.com. Again, VIP access is something you're certainly looking forward to. The insider forums, the Ask the Insiders, have it bundled your subscription, of course, with Paramount Plus. For everybody who supports the OBR streaming network, as always, thank you very much. Beginning daily at 6 o'clock, Browns 3D, hosted by myself. A bunch of other great shows throughout the week. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on Twitch. This has been your daily delivery of all things dog pound. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. And we will talk to y'all tomorrow.